Good morning, Colleen and William. This is Home Inspector Dan. Getting started this morning up on your roof. I thought I'd make a video just kind of show you some stuff. So they're definitely going to call this out. Anytime vegetation touches the home, it's got to be cut back. Cut it back at least a foot or two. It's going to come back, but you don't want it touching or any monsoon winds rubbing against the roof there. This is called a dead valley. Mineral paper cap sheet down there. I can't see the complete condition of it. There's a little bit of cracking. It's not bad. This stuff does crack out over time. More concerned about all the debris that's built up here, preventing drainage from your roof in this section. Don't see any bird poop, which is awesome in this section, but you need to clear this out. Somebody needs to come up here with a backpack blower or some type of device to get all this out. You do have bird stop, which is great to see. Let's just take a look at your underlayment in this section. So that's your underlayment. That's actually the waterproof barrier to your home. That wooden board up there is called a batten board. And we're getting a little bit of curling in that section. We get a little bit of wood broken off the batten board, which is telling me it's aged. It's wet, water stained. Doesn't look terrible, but it is starting to curl up there on the edge. Got a little broken tile here. Attic ventilation. Got some more roof vents up here. Plumbing vent. Ventilation for bathrooms. These are for ventilation for bathrooms. Sometimes exhaust for the dryer vent. These are for plumbing ventilation, so the air can follow the water through the drain pipe. Less gurgling. You know, we called out mortar caps yesterday on the house you looked at. Yours aren't looking too bad so far. They look pretty good. So we've got two B vents. More vegetation down there, you gotta cut that back. All of that right there. So we're looking at the storm collars. We've got storm collars, that's that little metal ring around there. Those need to be on the B vents, so that's good. Don't see any issues with the B vents. Pretty sure those are for your furnaces up in the attic. This B vent right here is for water heater in the garage. You do have proper kickout flashing installed, which is a common call out for home inspectors, so I'm glad that you've got that. And then again, these are areas of flashing that should be cleared off. If these have debris in them, any inspector is going to call that out. Parapet wall looks good. Looking for any stucco cracks or damage to any of this flat surface up here where water can get entry. Looks good though. And your scupper entry points don't have much debris built up in front of them. It's common to see a little bit of dirt, not concerning. But again, we've got debris over here that needs to be cleaned out. The rest of the roof surface looks good. I'm going to pull up another tile here on the back side of your house to see what the underlayment looks like back here. A little better. I don't see a bunch of staining or broken batten board. Let's go back here. This is just a manufacturing defect. Sometimes home inspectors call these out. It's really not that big of a concern until it creates a hole. We do have an apron around the chimney. Cricket, as they're called, so water comes down, it can go left or right from the chimney, which is good. You need to see that on anything over 30 inches wide. Yours is probably right there at 30 inches. Chimney cap doesn't look bad. All the fasteners have caulking on them, and the caulking still looks good. Stucco hole right on the side of your chimney. That'll be called out. Looks good on this side. Somebody stepped on that vent or something. It's really flat. Something home inspector might call that out, but I doubt it. Let's pull up one more section over here on the east side of the property. That looks good. So I'm getting down off my ladder here on the east side of the property. This is one of the windows I was glancing at, and there's some plastic trim missing around that corner. Now, somebody might catch that and they might not catch that. It's kind of hard to see unless you're right in this position. I don't see this all the time. I think you can see your trail of ants. Goes all the way down your fascia. Got a nice line going here. So it's another reason to cut back your vegetation. They're coming up from that tree and they're coming over here. If there was no tree touching your house, there'd be no ants up here. Yeah, I see them all the way over there. They're probably going to call out ants. Probably want to treat for ants, or at least have some plan in place to do that if asked to. Alright, so we're getting up into your attic space right now. Tons of storage. I'm noticing the floor is covered quite a bit, so somebody might call out that they can't see how thick your insulation is down there. Attics, truss-built roofs, roof structures are really not made to support weight from the middle. So all this weight in the middle, this bottom 2x4, this bottom cord that goes along there isn't strong enough to hold up all this weight. Luckily this plywood helps spread the weight around, but it's really not designed for that reason. All of this stuff in here is definitely going to be called out by a home inspector to get removed. Unfortunately, you are probably going to have to move it anyway because you're moving. But let's take a look back here. Sometimes home inspectors call out that these fluorescent lights don't have covers. They don't want these to get hit and then have glass fall on somebody's face. This is one of your flues up to the roof. Connections look good. And you need a cover plate on that electrical outlet. That'll be called out for a safety issue. This one's got a cover. Here's your secondary B vent. Type B gas vent. Flashing looks amazing, looks really clean. A couple things about your condensate pan. You've got some tar in here from these connections. Last thing we want is for this to get washed down that drain pipe. So if you can see over here, this is, if this were to fill up with water and this were to wash through, this piece couldn't fit through that. That's why we gotta get the drain pan cleaned out, all this stuff inside the drain pan. There's little bits of tar and stuff. They're probably not gonna wash through, but it'll be called out in need of cleaning. This stuff isn't too hard to take out of here either. I'm just gonna set that right there. So this is a condensate overflow. So if everything backs up, you do have a safety switch here that should shut down the unit. But what this might do, when this P-trap fills up because it gets plugged up, the water rises into this overflow breather pipe. So I'd like to see a 90-degree angle 3/4 inch PVC pipe put here and angle this over on top of this pan, so if any of this water were to leak out, it doesn't go down there. It goes back into the pan and then out that secondary drain. Hope that makes sense. Taking a look around in the backside of your attic, looking at the ductwork, the trusses, looking for any cracked trusses. shifting trusses, sheathing damage, sheathing water stains. There's a lot of stuff back here that needs to probably be removed just so we can get a better view of everything. So there's a lot of different levels of this attic space with batt insulation. And the thing with batt is there can be gaps, right? So like there's a gap right there, there's a gap right there. So I'm gonna go use a thermal camera inside the house before I leave to see if there's any visible gaps that can be repaired. Just trying to take a look around at everything. Ductwork looks great. Straps are still holding well. Looks good up here. There's your chimney chase. I don't see any water damage on that. Insulation levels still look good. A little bit of black on that 2x4. I don't know if you can see that. Sometimes that's associated with moisture. It could have been when the wood was laid on the ground before it was installed too, because there's no other boards around it has black on it. All right. Furnaces up here in the attic look good. We've got gas coming in from down there, coming up into the unit. Lennox units, 2019 it looks like. 3.5 ton on this side. Yep. And then this is another Lennox. Same issue with this condensate breather, same issue with all that stuff in the condensate pan. For safety reasons, you need to have all that debris out. This is a 3.5 ton 2 from 2019. Very clean install, but until all this stuff gets out of here, thorough inspection is not going to be possible. This area is up above your front doorway, your entryway. That's your entryway light. That's why there's no insulation there, because that's an exterior ceiling. But I'm looking for water stains, any signs of pest infestation. This is kind of where the ants were, kind of in this corner. So I'm seeing if there's any ants down in here. Now, that batt insulation down there, you can see that's blocking soffit vent. So the soffit vents are those little circles on the outside of your eave in the soffit area. And if batt insulation gets pushed too far back there, it'll block ventilation. So a home inspector will call that out if it doesn't get pulled back. They do make baffles, little pieces of plastic that slide down this sheathing and create an airspace so the air can travel up this sheathing without being obstructed by that insulation. Looking across the ceiling here, I'm on the east side looking west. Looks like there's a little sheathing damage right there that might get called out, but probably not. It's not a big deal. But somebody might point that out. To replace that, you'd have to pull up shingles and replace the plywood in that area. It would be too costly to want to replace that. This is the same type of black stuff I was talking about. This sometimes is associated with mold, dirt. This truss might have been put down into the ground or set on the ground and got wet before it was installed. These are the kind of gaps I was talking about that will probably show up on a thermal camera. So this batt insulation was pushed around and there's a couple inches on the side, so on the ceiling inside it'll show a little bit hotter. Now we have some vent for the attic over there. Looks pretty open. Then there's another vent back there that looks kind of clogged actually. Doesn't show too much air or light coming through it, so they might need to be cleaned out. Yep, that needs cover. It's right by the attic hatch here. Just cover that up. That shifting of insulation can also occur on vertical surfaces, so they use batt because they can push it up against that wall. But we always have these little gaps because batt insulation is weighted, so it likes to fall. So those might be called out. It's pretty common to see them, but I just want you to be aware of what it is. So on the front of the home, Seeing a couple big trees. Got a mesquite, and I'm not sure if this is an oak or what type of tree this is. But I'm looking for a water meter. Water meter is over there. Main water shutoff, I believe, is over on this side. So your main water line runs underneath this tree, the sidewalk. So if there's any problems with the main water line, you might have some issues in the driveway. Main plumbing clean out. There should be 2 of them. There usually is 2 of them. I'm not certain which way it goes. Yeah, with the roots around this area from this tree really raised everything up. I'm sure that other clean out is probably right there. Try and get access to that before we go. Uh-oh. Those foundation cracks. Yeah, you get some minor stem wall cracks right there by the garage. And it's a corner crack. There is a little bit of displacement in this area. So somebody calling this out is probably going to want to see a patch. This doesn't require like a complete foundation repair, but at very minimum a patch or maybe an epoxy injection to prevent that crack from getting any worse. It'll definitely be called out on the home inspection report though. We talked about proper kickout flashing up on the roof. We just don't have it right there. There should be an angled piece that shoots the water out this way instead of pushing it right into the stucco. Window in the front of the property. A little bit of plastic trim shrinkage around those corners. We call those out because water can get in there and cause problems. Window repair company can clean them up and get them back to looking original like that. So doing a water pressure test here at your main water line coming in. That's your main water shutoff. Your pressure pushing 60. This thing does leak a little bit. But yeah, we're right in between 60 and 70, which is good. That's what we like to see. Should have anti-siphon hose bibs at every hose bib just for code reasons. Anti-siphon device for the irrigation system. Looks good. Thing is, we do call these out if they're installed after the shutoff. Like your other house that we looked at yesterday, this is considered against code. We would put that valve up here, so if you leave town, you can still run your irrigation system. So this might be called out. A little bit of paint peeling over here on the east side where the condensate drains for one of the HVAC units. I like that you got it away from the foundation. That'll stop a lot of that, but they might want this repainted. Condensate line up there looks good. This is kind of the area we were seeing ants. A little dent in the garage door right there. Looking for at least 2 inches of visible foundation so we can find termites. If you don't have at least 2 inches, we call that out. We're over on the west side of the home now. Stem wall looks pretty good right there. Gas entry into the house. Got a bollard in place to protect that. I like that. It's a great idea. Gas valve there with the regulator. Bonding for the electrical system. Ooh, there's a rabbit. Okay. Surprise. Let's take a look at the electrical panel. Some inspectors, some electricians are going to call this out for being too close. You need 3 feet of access. I wouldn't necessarily pull this out until you ask me. 200 amp main service panel. Shut off is right there. I don't see any indications of termite treatment in the panel. This conduit that's run up for this electrical, probably for the irrigation system. There's a gap right there, so we don't want pests to get in there. If that could be sealed up, that'd be great. It looks like it's all copper. don't see any aluminum wiring here. No antioxidant paste. It's all copper. Those look good. There's a lot of wires down here, a lot of stuff that just kind of pushed in here, but it does look pretty clean. I don't see any white wires going into the circuit breakers. I don't see any double taps. Arc fault breakers. Those 3 circuits. Looks good. Everything seems to be labeled correctly in the panel. We might have some questions about the pool filter pump, pool light, waterfall pump. You know, those were installed at a later date, so it's maximizing your panel. If anybody wants to add any extra in the future, they're going to have to upgrade the panel or get another panel or a sub panel, because this 200 amp service panel is completely full. We're also going to check the circuit, 30 amp for the AC1, 40 amp for AC2. We're going to double check those with the units in the backyard. Having the sidewalk, underside of the sidewalk visible means we're possibly going to undermine this, so we need to create some type of bevel so water can run away from that area. If water starts draining underneath that sidewalk, we're going to have settlement and shifting. That right there might be called out as a trip hazard. We're on the side of the home now, garage side. Looking around the foundation. Foundation looks good. I had moisture there coming from the wall. Something was leaking down the wall and the water got behind the paint on the top side of that stem wall. That's why it's all bowed out like that. So maybe you had a roof leak up there. Maybe there was a water leak inside the wall. Maybe some of this pool equipment was spraying that foundation right there, but that'll get called out for excessive moisture here. And that's the start of your horizontal crack here. That's because that rebar inside the foundation is starting to expand. It looks like it's been painted, sealed in, so they might not bring too much of attention to this, but it is something to be aware of. And nowadays we're always recommending that these get covered with plastic covers. I wouldn't update it until they ask you. Usually they don't get accepted, but it is better practice to have those big ugly plastic things over the top of them. Some of this plumbing looks a bit older. It's an older system. What are you gonna say? Backwash valve is broken here. Busted off. Things are pretty well labeled. We like to see everything labeled just to know that you can control it if you need to. This looks like an old aerator, you know, that got disconnected. None of this is supported. All you have to do is bump that and this whole thing shakes, so that'll probably be called out because there's no support. You know, that's a lot of weight when you fill that full of water to be vibrating around. You don't want anything to come loose. Jacuzzi, variable speed pump. Got good bonding on this one. And your bonding clamp fell off on this motor. See this little screw right there? That needs to go. Well, this is how it is supposed to be. It fell off that motor. That's a safety issue that'll definitely get written up. This conduit, they don't want to see that exposed. It'd be great if we could run this all the way up to the box. Put a little extension on there and get it all the way up there. Even if there's a little gap, it's better than having this sit out like this. These are those soffit vent holes that are being plugged by some of your insulation up in the attic. See that screen material in there? So if I can't see air light or air daylight from the attic space, that means those are plugged with insulation. Got up in there. Some caulking. So somebody just came along and caulked those gaps. That's good. If there's any gaps in those rafter soffit areas, they should be filled in with caulking and painted. Kickout flashing. Looks good. No power on that outlet down there. See anything in there? There's a open junction box in here that needs a cover plate.
Okay.
Another thing I wanted to point out is ventilation. So with gas fireplaces in Arizona, we've got a damper, closed and open, which is good if you have a natural burning fireplace. But with a gas one, we can't have that 100% closed. It's against code to have that be able to 100% be closed. Yeah, just a little bit of grout crack there. Corner of the bedroom.
Should we just regrout it?
You sure can. Yeah, if you can find grout that matches that dark color. Right. Yeah. Don't even do it. If you really want to, just swap the hoses underneath the sink and you're good to go.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
My fear is that I gotta turn the stop.
We got 2015 smoke detectors. 2015. So on this electrical panel, we've got some excess Romex up here. This yellow sheathing should be cut all the way back to here to be proper.
Ooh, okay.
You can do it.
Shut the power off.
Yep. Yep. There's a little bit of a gap there. I wouldn't worry about that. Other than that, everything's solid.
Okay.
Cool.
I can do that. Just take a carpenter knife and.
Yeah.
Even if it stopped it today, burning all fossil fuel, it's not going to stop. It's not going to go down. It's where it's at.
All right, so we chatted about the garage doors a little bit. They didn't open all the way, so that last part of the garage door only opens up that far. If you get somebody buying your house that wants that garage door to open all the way, they're going to ask you to get that repaired. This is an area that could be called out by the VA for water damage, water staining. Definitely want to sand that and paint that. Looks like there's been some repairs down there, right underneath the electrical panel. It's perfectly fine. Just be prepared to explain to the buyers what that's for. Now this sub panel looks good today. There's nothing labeled on it, which is not a huge deal because we can follow the conduit from this box and where it goes. It goes to the outlets in the garage. Over there and over there. They should be labeled somewhere near. Black magic marker is perfectly fine. But also they should be GFI protected. These don't have any GFI protection on the outlets. As you can see, that's going to be called out as a safety upgrade. And if it were me, I would just replace the circuit breakers in the panel right here with GFI circuit breakers instead of replacing the outlets. On the side of the home here, really good idea, William. Cover those up. That's kind of a crazy thing. You might explain that to the buyer why those are covered up. I'm sure the home inspector is going to question why those have covers, but hopefully you can figure it out with the scupper up there. So looking back here, the foundation wall, we talked about that in this area. Now the sidewalk, it's really shifted around this tree. They might want you to do something about the tree, or at least fix these trip hazards. Anytime that's over about a 1/4 inch tall, that's a trip hazard. Your pergola is no bueno. They're going to write that up almost immediately for a safety issue. They might not even inspect the spa if there is one here at that time until they get that replaced. You can see the water on the bottom of the fence out there. Now that's old water damage. Pool looks great today. The vessel, didn't see any issues. Your auto float valve was working. Skimmer box was working. Put some caulking underneath the coping. That's this area right between the water and the bottom of this. You want to make sure that area is sealed up. There's a couple spots that were kind of not good, that if you lowered the water about a foot or so, you could really get a good look underneath there. It's called the coping. I'm going to get sealant put all the way around the perimeter here. There's a little bit of cracking underneath that rock too. right at the bottom of that rock. We want to get some type of sealant in there, just so water doesn't seep out of the pool and create some settlement on that side of the pool. Talking to Bill about the moisture back here, you can see the moisture. You can see the moisture on the wall and the trim in this bedroom right in the corner. So if you don't get that cleaned up on that trim work on the inside, it might get called out for water staining. Home inspectors always write up these windows that are covered with sunscreens because we can't actually see the exterior of the window. We're looking at some of the areas where they've patched up the corners. One's open, one's been fixed, one hasn't been fixed. It's just plastic trim that needs to be repaired. Starting to see the weather stripping bow out just a little bit there. Not bad. Gable roof, gable ventilation. HVAC systems were both working awesome today. 2019 on them, just a few years. Everything was sealed up around there. Didn't see any issues. You want to keep the vegetation at least 5 feet above this away. Any branches that come above this, at least for 5 feet, should be trimmed back. You can see William's starting to work on the trimming back of the tree here, which is great. Just make sure this stuff doesn't touch the home. I didn't see any termites today. Doesn't mean they're not hiding somewhere where I can't see inside of the garage where there's a lot of stuff. And all that stuff inside the garage gets moved. I would take a good look at the walls. Make sure you don't see any tubes. Grading and drainage is another kind of important aspect that is probably going to be brought up by the next homeowner, because there's no adequate grading away from the backyard here where water goes around. And even William told me this water pools up pretty good here and over there. So because we can see the ground, it looks really flat. And home inspectors call that out because we want to see grading going around the property on both sides, directing water this way. There should be a swale, which is just a depression. It leads all your water up through that drain right there. That's our drain for the backyard. There's 2 of them, one on this side, one on the other side. There's no drains in the backyard. Fence, none on the back wall. So don't expect any water to drain out that way. We just have to bring that dirt level up to where we can't see the bottom of the concrete anymore, and the water will get away from that. The last thing we want is water to go underneath the sidewalk. That'll create unsettlement areas, or it'll create settlement and unstable areas where the concrete is going to sink in.